Hello and welcome to the Aussie Ninja Video Show. Thank you very much for watching. It's super exciting to have you here. I've got Andrew, who is the CEO of the Koinos Group, who's making a super cool blockchain. We hope, we think. How are you, Andrew?
I'm doing well. Actually, it's a pretty exciting announcement we have today that we're open sourcing for pieces of Koinos today.
Oh,
So by the
wow.
time anyone's watching this, they'll see that. So you'll have more evidence that we're actually building a blockchain today. We're releasing the block store microservice and the P2P microservice, then all the C++ libraries we've written and all the Golang libraries that we've written. So what's cool about that, in addition to just being able to see what we're working on with Koinos and start to understand the different microservices and how you might write your own microservices, these are the first blockchain specific microservices to ever be open source that we know of. So that's pretty cool. Like, this is the first time any blockchain microservices have been open sourced.
That's amazing. I really like open source is amazing, but when you're creating something, it's really hard to know what to open source and what to keep to yourself. Like it's really hard. Like you could be like, oh, I'm going to open source everything, but like that's a very difficult decision to make. So this is really, really exciting.
Yeah, and things have to be in a sufficiently mature state before you can open source them.
Yeah.
So there's that kind of balancing act. But the nice thing about the microservice architecture and just the modularity of Koinos as a whole is that what you're only worried about now is open sourcing the individual modules, whether it's a microservice or eventually it'll be these smart contract modules that are coding up for the system logic. But right now we're focused on the node software itself, which is going to be a cluster of microservices. And so the nice thing is that, and actually this is something that we talk about in the announcement, is that it enables us to do a version of lean startup methodology with our approach to the blockchain development, because all we have to do is get the individual microservices, which are by definition simple programs,
Yeah.
to a sufficiently mature state where we can now open source them. And so people can begin looking at them and begin understanding maybe how they could build their own microservices,
Yeah.
thinking about how they're going to design their applications. It's not everything that they need. There's a couple more microservices and things that we need to open source before you can really understand the full system. And there's just tons of additional things like documentation we need to release.
Yeah.
But this way you can begin understanding parts as we release parts, and we can release parts as soon as they're ready, which is, the process that we're continuing today, because we already released Koinos types,
Yeah. Yeah.
but nobody knows what to do with those yet. So.
It's all pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah.
And so the microservices, are they in C++ or are they written in something else?
Yeah, so this is the cool thing about microservices, is that we can theoretically write them in any programming language we want. Now with a blockchain, that's a little more complicated, because you need to ensure that all the microservices are always saying the exact same thing. Well, specifically, they're serializing things in exactly the same way, which is why we had to build Koinos types.
Yep.
Once we built Koinos types, that's what enables us to build microservices in any programming language. And so actually the microservices that we're open sourcing today were written in Golang,
Right.
or the Go language,
Yeah.
created
I
by
knew
Google.
what you meant.
And so we were able to write these 10 times faster than the blockchain microservice Koinos D, which is being written in C++. And so that's taking a little longer for us to develop. It's also super important.
Yeah.
But these are written in Golang. So
I mean, there's got to be, I don't know, 100 times, 1,000 times more developers that know Go than know C++, surely. Like Go is super popular.
yeah, that's how it seems to me. It's more accessible, and hopefully we're going to get TypeScript support soon, and so people will be able to begin writing microservices in TypeScript. That's another thing that we're working on. Yeah, so it's just, I think the most exciting thing about today's announcement is that it just shows how much progress that we're making,
Yeah.
and the way that we can continue to make rapid progress in a way that people really haven't seen in blockchains before, because of this analogy to lean startup methodology. And the way we think about it is that they do morbidly obese startup methodology, where they design everything as an enormous block that's really difficult to change, and then they release it and they go, here it is,
Yeah.
learn it, understand it, don't try to change it. That would be a nightmare.
Yeah. Understand it. Don't make any suggestions. We can't handle that.
No, this isn't built for that. Yeah, Koinos is literally, it's built for that.
Yeah. I mean,
And we,
sorry, I was just going to say, like, it's probably pretty rare for a startup like yours to have have the experience that your team has. Like, you kind of know what's going to work before you need to build it, right? I think a lot of startups are like, we're not really sure if this is going to work, so we'll just like figure it all out. Like, you're basically saying, we know we can build this down the track. And that's actually, I think, pretty rare.
well, it's funny. Yeah, there's kind of a paradoxical thing to what you said, which is, yes, we have, with the Steam blockchain, we had to write all of our smart contracts as C++ operations that would be hard forked into the blockchain. So for us, the idea of having to write a smart contract in isolation is the least scary thing we
Yeah.
can think of. The
Yeah.
most scary thing we can think of, based on our experience, is native implementations, cramming things into the blockchain where they'll live forever. And so the real experience that we got from Steam and Steam, in addition to the startup experience, because that's a totally different animal that we
Yeah,
got to see
totally.
firsthand,
Yeah.
is how to start up a company in this space. And failures and successes are both valuable
Yeah.
when it comes to that. Um, but as far as the blockchain design was concerned, what that motivated us to do was to design Koinos so that all of the system logic was in smart contracts, because we know we can do those easily.
Yeah.
Um, and the technology has been well established for how to upgrade smart contracts without a hard fork. Um, so all of the smart contracts on Koinos will be in-band upgradable. So all the system logic will be in smart contract modules. And again, we have this modular design where we can release minimum viable implementations. The mainnet, we could implement the main network of Koinos as just the most basic implementations of governance and and consensus algorithm. The consensus algorithm will be in a smart contract module, isolated, and it could be a minimally viable implementation where it's just like, yeah, you make it bad, but functional, and then we have to work together to make it better.
Yeah.
But we have more time. You know, we can get it out faster and we can iterate towards greatness. And that's really what's going to distinguish. Now, I'm not saying we necessarily do that. That's kind of it goes back to assessing when something is in a sufficiently mature state for open sourcing. Um, it's kind of a subjective, artsy determination. But once everybody sees the nature of the governance system, once everybody is communicating and we're seeing where consensus is headed, we can move much faster to implement improvements because of the way that Koinos was designed. I mean, I think, you know, a short way of saying it is that the real experience that we got through our experience on previous blockchains is really in how to design systems,
Yeah.
not how to implement systems.
Yeah.
It's how to design systems, and you want to design for upgradability and modularity.
Yeah. So, so that actually brings me to a question. So Dan Larimer was integral with Steemit. Obviously, one of the founders there. He had worked on BitShares before then. He's been working on EOS, and now it looks like he's going to be working on a new system called Clarion OS. I actually don't know anything about it, and I was surprised that he was doing this. What's your take on Clarion OS?
I mean, it's full of surprises, although also it's very predictable. Starts project, abandons project, starts project with social media component,
Yeah.
abandons project, starts project with social media component.
I mean, he
Yeah,
did say that he was still in EOS, but
yes, just not block one.
right. But he can't be super into it if he's written a book and he's starting this new project.
Yeah, I mean, I, I, I don't know.
Yeah.
He Clarion OS is very similar to what we actually started working on. It was called OpenSeed, and the app that we were building on top of OpenSeed was OpenLink. And this was actually before we all resigned from Steemit. I was working with another developer on this. I was calling it a second layer solution. Dan's calling it a 0-layer solution.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. It's what these are just marketing. These are
Yeah.
just like nerd marketing terms. But the reason I could work on it while I was at Steemit was because it wasn't a blockchain component, and the reason why I was working on it was because it was effectively a messaging protocol, and the whole idea was that all of these Steam applications could really benefit from having a messaging component. It's
Yeah.
what everybody wanted. And I actually had a theory that by implementing an off-chain messaging solution, that actually most of the communications that were being done effectively through the Steam blockchain would be offloaded into this off-chain system. And now we'd get additional scalability of Steam, because what are people doing? They're communicating. They don't
Yeah.
care that it's on a blockchain.
No.
That's just like the world's most expensive way of storing those messages. And
I did
so,
always think that was weird that we were like basically our comments to people's posts were were kept on the blockchain forever. Like I was very aware, like while I'm writing a comment, like I hope this is okay because it's going to exist forever. And that seems like an odd thing for like just a throwaway comment, you know?
yeah, it was a terrible idea. And those were, I believe, the most expensive operations on Steam. So
Right.
that, because you're creating state, and
Yeah.
anytime you're adding to the blockchain state, that is the most expensive thing you can do on the blockchain.
Yeah,
And
which people were doing with abandon because they might get rewarded for those comments. So, you know, like I know like on Hive, for example, there are people that make, you know, 5,000 comments a month because they're engaging with people. Like that is an expensive process.
yeah, and that's what the value proposition was kind of presented as. And that was the whole idea. And it reminds me of just a number of common problems that we see in the space, where you have the true value proposition of the platform being kind of obfuscated, and it leading to all of these bad side effects. Like, for example, is Ethereum really a decentralized application development platform, or is it a fee generation platform? It's like they want fees to be high, as high as possible,
Yeah.
that people will still pay them,
Yeah.
because that's how they make money.
Well,
And so with Steam,
it sounds like with Ethereum, there's this battle now. Like there's a battle between the founders and the miners, and they now have different. They're pulling in different directions.
yeah, this is a recurring theme in the blockchain space, where the people who release a blockchain think they know how it should be, and think that they will be able to make it become that thing. And we definitely fell into this trap at Steemit. And, you know, we were where we were being led by other people, one of whom was Dan Larimer. Dan kind of left when I started, but he
Right.
certainly set the tone, he set the architecture and all of that.
Yeah.
But that tone was, because we created this thing, and there's a certain degree of truth to this, because we created this thing, we can determine the direction of it. Now, there was this other element of, well, Steam had this massive stake and all of the witnesses are early adopters and there's a
Yeah.
small number of
Yeah.
witnesses. And so it
Probably
was,
friends of Steemit, maybe.
right.
Yeah.
So there were certainly large stakeholders, and so you had this whole system that fed into this idea that we can make this become what it is, what it should be, and we know what it should be. And with Koinos, we're taking a totally different approach, where the whole idea is we want it to be what developers want it to be, and we're going to design this whole system so as to further that objective. And I think when you look at other blockchain projects, it is very clear that the people who are creating them believe that they know better than everybody else. It's their attitude, it's their personality. They are open about it. I am God
Yeah.
and you should worship me.
Yeah.
I know everything. I never make mistakes. And they really try to promote this image that they're perfect, and they're obviously deeply, that is the proof that they are the most deeply flawed of all of us. And so, you know, I think you see this with Cardano, where it, you know, it's, oh, it has to be Haskell. It's, you
Yeah.
know, oh, I'm Charles Hoskinson. I'm going to do these live streams every day, and I'm going to talk about how I'm a mathematician and how we have all these peer-reviewed papers. We're so smart. Just listen to us, and just don't worry about how the whole blockchain thing works.
So are you suggesting I should take down my Andrew shrine? Is that what I should do?
Yes, certainly, certainly. But anyway, sorry, we got off on a tangent. So yeah, you know, you set up this blockchain. You know, with Steem, it was this is a content blockchain. I think the truth behind Steem, after trying to figure it out from the inside, thinking about it, and also people's intentions are often not clear. I think the truth was closer to, we need to get a blockchain up fast. We need to bring people in and then give them something that's fast, that's usable, that can deliver friendly user experiences. All in favor of this, by the way.
Yeah.
Bring people in, and then we'll make it all work. We'll make it all scale.
Yeah.
And you know, we were there. We were like, yes, that's what we're going to do. We're going to make it all scale. We're going to launch Mira. We're going to launch HiveMind. All of that. But you believe your intentions are pure. You believe you're doing things the right way. Of course, you intend to do all these things. But what if you fail? What if people don't agree with you? What, you know, you should only commit to being able to do the things that you know you can do with the tools available to you, including a truly fair and open and decentralized platform, as opposed to a platform that you're saying is going to be decentralized but isn't really decentralized. Speaking of Dan Larimer and Clarion OS, yeah, I was looking through their GitHub this morning, and I saw one interesting comment where he said, "I'm never working with delegated proof of stake again." And I have to say, we 100% understand. And
Yeah.
so I think now you have two founders of delegated proof of stake, Dan Larimer and Theoretical, one of our co-founders and blockchain architects, being like, we're done with delegated proof of stake
Yeah.
because it's centralized.
Yeah.
And so,
Not
yeah,
only is it centralized, but there's really messy politics that come with it, because like say if there's 21 or whatever, like number 22 like doesn't earn very much, number 21 earns so much, number 1 earns a ton. Like people will say or do anything to make sure they can earn as much as they can. So it gets really messy and a little bit evil really quickly.
Yeah, and they have so much power, and this ties in the best lens to understand all of this complicated stuff. And it really ties all of this stuff together, is the insidious danger of monolithic designs.
Yeah.
I know this sounds wild, but the thing with Steam, the real problem was that it was a monolithic design where we're like, we need to build this fast. We need to get people interested. At the end of the day, I think what unites most of us in this space, Dan Larimer, us, Vitalik, is we all want to see a more decentralized future.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard future to build. And
Yeah.
so we make these decisions, and they're not always the perfect decisions, far from it, um, with the end goal of trying to advance the cause of decentralization. And so with Steam, it was, we have this graphene blockchain architecture, which enables us to fire up application specific blockchains fast, um, with a delegated proof of stake consensus algorithm. Let's use this to fire up everybody likes social media.
Yeah.
It's a
It's
good way
the
to
in
onboard.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the in thing. So let's fire up a social media blockchain, attract a bunch of users, and then make better. Um, and not really thinking through all the consequences, like that, like the messages would be adding to state and would become this albatross that is ultimately unsustainable, that obviously you can't scale content on a blockchain. How many people, how much posting really needs to be censorship resistant? Why are you forcing everybody to subsidize the cost of arguably the one or two censorship resistant
Yeah.
things? And so, you wind up with this monolithic structure. And then, I think it's perfectly possible that when designing Steam, they thought, oh, it would be great if the messages weren't on the blockchain. But then you're designing two systems.
Yeah.
And so when you're architecting, it makes a lot of sense to think, well, we'll just do it all at once at first, and then we'll develop a separate system, and then we'll pitchfork out all of the comments and put them into this separate system. And one way to think about Clarion OS is that it is that separate system. I mentioned that we were building something similar, or that I was working on something similar with OpenSeed and OpenLink, where OpenSeed was basically the decentralized protocol for sharing the messages, and OpenLink would be the front end for displaying the messages.
Yeah.
So really OpenSeed was what we were thinking of as Clarion OS. And then everybody resigned from Steemit. And then we were thinking about the next decentralized applications that we wanted to build. And we were looking around at the solutions, including EOS, which was, Dan Larimer's last project,
Yeah.
and was really the great hope for enabling free to use blockchain applications, or feeless blockchain applications that weren't an absolute nightmare for human people to use. And that project is an unmitigated failure. Dan has resigned from the company that created it. And long before he resigned, a year ago when we first started on this project, we looked at EOS and said, we can't build on that. That's not going to deliver applications that are even truly free to use. You can't even do what it says it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so at that point, we felt a responsibility and a personal need to actually deliver a feeless blockchain so that we can have decentralized applications without fees. We can have Uniswap without fees. People can trade NFTs without fees. And, if somebody else wants to build a messaging protocol, because I don't need a blockchain to send Adam a message.
Yeah.
There are many protocols that enable us to send messages to one another. And so let's let somebody else do that. And it looks like Dan is actually, after leaving EOS, has decided, yeah, that is the problem that remains to be tackled. He's got more money than God because he,
Was a
did
founder,
these.
yeah. Because he's
He's
been a founder and had initial stake in a bunch of things.
Yeah, he's done several launches
Yeah.
that resulted in a lot of personal wealth. So
Yeah.
he can sit back and go, I don't need the money, and I'm just going to build this messaging protocol. And so you know, yeah, I think that will be very useful if it's Clarion OS or not. But it would be good to have a messaging protocol that is designed to operate through the browser and has the tooling needed for front ends to integrate that messaging protocol. It's absolutely something that's missing from front ends, many of which have social components. But I think to kind of wrap up the whole Dan Larimer Clarion OS thing, he seems to be very fixated on the topic of social media. It's not really clear to me whether it's because of a genuine belief in it or because it's a great way to remain in people's attention. When we talk about Koinos, all anyone wants to ever talk about is social media. Social media isn't a thing. Advertising networks are a thing,
Yeah.
and social media applications are are the most popular implementations of these internet-based advertising platforms. Far more value is left to be captured in improving our healthcare systems, including improving our educational systems, our financial systems, that are our legal systems, all of which are still incredibly antiquated.
Yeah.
And that's where we see insane value, trillions and trillions of dollars in value remaining to be harvested and through decentralized applications and harvested in a way that accrues to everyone, to all stakeholders equally, instead of just a tiny minority of people. And so messaging, social media, it's a sexy topic. It's a great way to get people interested in what you're doing. But ultimately, there's a lot of solutions out there. And certainly more solutions will be coming. And the design of Koinos with its microservice architecture enables any protocol to be integrated with Koinos with ease. It's just a matter of creating another microservice that pipes that protocol into Koinos. Like he said, Clarion OS isn't a blockchain, and really there isn't a need for blockchains in most cases. And so the way we're building Koinos is to be this modular, evolutionary, the easiest way for piping a blockchain data structure into your application at low cost without introducing friction into your user experience. And so, maybe they'll work together pretty nicely, and maybe all of this is going to come together well because Dan was so influential in our evolution as a team, I think, for better or worse.
Well, have fun staying poor, just trying to improve the world. Because you're clearly not going to get anywhere if you're not doing social media, god damn it.
Yeah, there's just no money to be made anywhere else. We're here for developers, and no developer that we spoke to asked us about messaging, asked us to do messaging. When I was still at Steemit, that is what a lot of developers talk to me about, because the nature of Steam and Steam-based front ends. But once we resigned from Steemit, and once all of the blockchain guys and I started working on a new blockchain, that's not what developers were looking for from us. Most developers who are sophisticated enough to work with blockchains can integrate messaging solutions into their applications with relative ease.
Yeah.
That's not the thing they're struggling with. They want to integrate tokens. And for that, they want to integrate fungible and non-fungible tokens. They want to leverage smart contracts. So that's what we shifted our focus to. And yeah, and that's what we're gonna demonstrate some progress on today when we release those microservices.
Well, everyone, you heard it here second, because you've probably already seen the announcement, but exciting things to come to the Koinos network. Thank you very much, Andrew. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I think I learned a little bit about Clarion, probably not, but I know what blockchains are, which is always important. Thank you, and I'll see you again.
My pleasure. See ya.
Bye.